I recently kicked my Starbucks habit, which once I tallied the numbers and saw how much I was spending there, I realized it was actually a very expensive habit. Um, so what with coffee and everything being more expensive nowadays, I resorted to cold brewing my own coffee, which is actually a little bit more intuitive, a little bit cheaper, a little bit more straightforward than one might think. If you're thinking about trying to make cold brew at home, here's my own personal experience. You can get Starbucks coffee if you still want to drink Starbucks. It's just get it pre-ground or buy a grinder. I buy Peet's coffee ground. I like a darker roast. This is a nice coffee. A little bit, a little bit smaller, a little bit pricier than some other brands, but you know, you gotta enjoy life a little bit. So I got these on Amazon. They're coffee bags for cold brew. You see here in the picture, they're making like concentrates for cold brew. Like one way they advertise it is like putting it in a mason jar with a bag, and that's like a concentrate, and then you dilute it. But what I do is just put it in a big pitcher of water, and I put two of these bags. After you fill them up with coffee grounds, you tie them up, knot them, throw two of them into the pitcher, let it brew overnight. I typically leave them in there for a couple days, just because maybe the microns or whatever of this mesh is, maybe not as fine as it should be, or maybe it's too fine rather. So I let them brew for like 2 days. I can still enjoy a cup of coffee or two even after a day of brewing, but 2 days is kind of like the sweet spot. But yeah, that's a good alternative to buying Americanos and espressos and cold brews and frappuccinos. Granted, it might not be as bougie, and granted, you might not have all the bells and whistles, but when you take into account how much you're spending on Starbucks every day, for me, it was like a $5 coffee every day. Wasn't really considering, how much it was adding up to, but it was like $100+ habit every month. So once I cut that out, I basically brought my expenses down to like however much this was. It was probably like $15 or something, maybe 20. I got it like like a month ago, so I don't remember how much I paid. And this is like a little under $20. And what I noticed with these bags is they really go a long way, because you get about maybe 3 batches or 4 batches out of a bag if you're doing like a gallon pitcher. And there's plenty of coffee. And also, as far as alternatives go, if you don't want to make your own coffee, I've noticed that if you want to get cold brew still, you could still go to like a gas station or a corner store, corner market. I've noticed that at the Circle K that's close to my house, they sell cold brew for I think like $3, $2.99. Granted, it's not as smooth and doesn't taste as good as Starbucks, but it gets the job done, and you can pour your own. So if you want a little bit of ice or a lot of ice or heavy cream, everything's there for you to select for yourself. That's kind of like a self-service. So if you want less ice and more coffee, you get a little bit more bang for your buck, because the cups are bigger. The coffee's not as tasty, but you get to make it as strong as you want. You get as much as you want. The cups are a lot bigger, and of course you could just go to the soda machine to fill it up with as much ice as you want. I actually get mine with crushed ice sometimes. That is a good alternative to keep in mind if you want to get a quick coffee. One thing that I've also noticed is there's a brand called Stock, or Stoke, S-T-O-K. It's some sort of weird, some weird like European name or something. That's a pretty good brand, I think. Relatively cheap, I think, like a liter plus or something like that. I think it's 24 ounces or 48 ounces of like a coffee jug of stock, or even cold brew from Starbucks in the jug at the store. Around my area, it's going for about $7, probably a little over $7. But considering that you get multiple cups out of it, all you really need. For me, I got this cup from my dad, and I just, you know, I drink water out of it, I drink coffee out of it, you know, I just like to drink out of this cup, you know. It's but yeah, anyways, I would recommend, if you don't want to start drinking homemade coffee right away, which is definitely a cheaper alternative, consider maybe getting cheaper coffee at the corner store, because you get as much coffee as you want. You can get a large and it's way cheaper, or just get the jugs, because that's a good way to start. That's a good barrier to entry to kind of move your way into at least making the ritual of drinking your coffee being at home rather than going out and getting it. Because once you start associating your morning routine of just waking up and, you know, going to the kitchen to grab something, you start to associate coffee with, you know, your morning home routine rather than getting in your car and going somewhere. I think getting your body to kind of get that pattern kind of synced up, I think will kind of, you know, make it a little bit more of a commonplace for your week, for your month. So that's something to consider. That's just what I've done. It's just a necessity that I've budgeted this in. If I could still afford Starbucks every day, I would. Occasionally, I still treat myself to that kind of coffee. And yeah, or just maybe there's some other place down the street I like to go to sometimes. I will treat myself sometimes. But really, I just drink what I make now. And it's totally worth it. So I'd recommend giving it a try. All right, and sorry, excuse me. Anyways, thanks for watching, and take care.